Hi, this is Bruce Rawles. Today I am once again talking with Susan Dugan about A Course in Miracles, our perennial subject.
Yeah.
And today we thought we'd talk about lesson 156, which is I walk with God in perfect holiness. And we were just discussing, how so many of these lessons, you read them and the melos, as Ken Wapnick would like to say, sinks in, and then you walk away, and then sometimes it lingers for a while, and other times, you get distracted, and 3 minutes later it's like, where did all that go?
Right,
but
definitely.
but
Yeah.
you're reading it again this morning, and uh, looking at how the truth that's behind all the workbook lessons and the whole course is just is astonishing, isn't it? I mean,
Yes, and I think this one, well, like all the lessons, it's true. Like they always seem sort of new in what
yeah.
they're, but I think part of that is just hopefully we're really trying to live this and practice it. And so it's meeting us at a different place on the journey each
Yeah.
time. And
Yeah.
so we're going to have hopefully a little bit more of a deeper, a little less resistance to
Uh-huh.
hearing what it has to say.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, and I've always loved the way the references in the course to the journey and to walking with. I'm a big walker. It's not literal walking we're talking about, but that is something that I can really connect with
Mm-hmm.
as that we have this companion with us, and that we're not alone. I mean, that's really the greatest gift that the course offers us right away. Even as total beginners fresh to the course, is for me, that was what really drew me, was just for the first time, felt like there was something that I could really let in, that was saying that I wasn't alone, because I felt alone. And I think
Mm-hmm.
if we're all honest with ourselves, we all kind of feel alone. We don't, we try desperately to fill that with other people and with other things and with interests and hobbies and work and all of the things that we engage in, but relationships, but it doesn't really solve the problem of this sort of essential loneliness that we have. And the course gives us a context to understand that, but it also gives us a companion, a teacher that is constantly, never judges us and is always there to guide us in the sense of looking at our interference with the awareness that, our belief that we're alone, and where that comes from, and leading us back to the awareness that we're all really, together, that
Mm-hmm.
we've not broken, and that we're still part of capital L love, God, and we're still one capital C child of God. So, that's anyway, but the way that we get there, the way that we remember that, is through this seeming journey.
Mm-hmm.
So we can get started from
Yeah,
um,
I'm glad you mentioned that. That the idea that we have not only the concept, but I think we feel the presence of the companion
yes.
when if
I
we'd let the
mean,
course in. And I mean,
right.
I noticed the first time I picked up the book back in the mid '80s, and I read "Nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God." And it's like, whoa, there's some part of me that's trying to get my attention here, and
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and it was like, I think we feel that appointed friend, that inner companion, even if we resist the idea almost instantly. Um,
Right, it's there's that longing
yeah,
that we've
yeah,
always had,
right.
and something about the course speaks to us,
Mm-hmm.
right away.
Mm-hmm.
That's what usually draws people to it. We think it's going to be a lot simpler than than it is,
Yeah.
and that we're going to be able to immediately, open to that. And of course, we have a lot of resistance to it. We have a lot of fear. We have a lot of guilt we weren't aware of. And the course, this is really um, a very organized system
Mm-hmm.
for helping us, it presents a curriculum, it presents a workbook, it presents text, and to help us intellectually understand it. It presents a different way of approaching our relationships and our lives. And then it presents this built-in teacher, this built-in companion that is going to, be with us, that we need to be to work with and become vulnerable to, and become honest and intimate with, and that's a journey in itself. So,
Very,
so
very
we're
much.
walking. We, in truth, are walking along the road the seeming road, with that teacher beside us. But a lot of times we feel like we are completely alone, because that's been um, because of what we're secretly accusing ourselves of, this guilt that we're accusing ourselves of over believing we're separate, but learning that it had no real effects. We learned that one situation, one relationship, one scene in the dream at a time, by looking at how invested we are in believing that, and then changing our mind and turning to the stepping back and letting this love within us lead and look and show us. So yeah.
Yeah. What you just shared reminded me of a quote that a lady in a study group that online that I've been attending quite a while now. Uh, I don't know who she attributed to, but I really like the quote, and I'm paraphrasing as usual. It's um, if God seems far away, guess who moved? And I think
Yeah,
it's, but
right.
we've separated ourselves, or seem to have separated ourselves. Yet the course's whole emphasis is showing us the folly of that idea, and that even the guide that we think is, we initially think of as an external guide, and then use metaphors like, I walk with God, I walk with the Holy Spirit, I walk with Jesus, work with Ken Wapnick, whoever works in that moment, as a symbol of
Mhm.
non-ego awareness, is fine. But even eventually will, in the course reminds us in so many ways that, we will realize that who we're walking with really is our real identity. And we're
Right,
replacing
right.
the the made up identity with that real identity. And it's a shared identity, that we bring everyone with us. And
Right. I mean, and most of the time we're not even thinking about that we're far away from God. But we're very aware and constantly butting up against how far away we feel from others, and
right,
from our
right.
significant others, and how difficult we find it to bridge those differences, and those you know the lack of having my needs met, all that neediness that we have. So that I mean, the stand-in for God, the way that we learn that this is what we're accused, this is my relationship with God that needs help, is really through seeing that it's, the course uses the term my brother, but that whoever the other is that I'm in conflict with is what is showing me where the hurt is, where the brokenness is within me.
Yep.
So yeah.
And as you pointed out in your wonderful classes and so many other uh, things that Ken Wapnick has shared, and in the course throughout, it seems like it's an ongoing process to notice how over time we have suppressed and repressed and denied the fact that we really have by default made everyone as an enemy or a scapegoat in some fashion or another, and to recognize the depth of our rejection and the depth of our desire to dissociate, and to take the guilt of that seeming separation and put it onto the other, no
Right.
matter whether it's a significant other, or just someone that cuts us off in traffic,
Right.
or cuts in front of us, and
Yeah.
in the grocery store, it doesn't matter.
We want
And
to walk alone,
yeah,
we
yeah,
want it our way. And I mean, you really can't go do anything without the more that we practice this, the more aware we become of it within ourselves, and how it's just everywhere.
yeah,
It's just
yeah, yeah,
everywhere.
yeah.
Like I go to the Y to work out, and I've gotten to know some of I don't know the people well, but there's people that work out in your classes all the time, and so much of people come up and chat with you and stuff. So much of it is about, like, people coming up and talking about somebody else in the class, who like I don't even know these people, but like there's this need to just sort of differentiate and to judge and all of that. And I mean, I certainly do it, but I have it's for me, it's more usually in my chronic, my special relationships that I have find it hardest to deal with. But we're all doing it all the time in some
Yeah.
form. And you're
Yeah.
right, like all you have to do is like have somebody like try to cut you off in traffic and you can see that even the little things are really upsetting.
Yeah. And just noticing in those, even those split-second judgments that we
Right.
dismiss.
Or listening to I mean, I certainly, have still have an other with, groups that I disagree with that
Mhm,
I sort of
mhm.
automatically, just forget what the course is saying when I'm reacting to. And so, so it comes up for us all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, should we get started and
Sure, sure.
dive in
Would you
first?
like to read the first paragraph?
Sure.
Okay.
Today's idea but states the simple truth that makes the thought of sin impossible. And the simple truth is, I walk with God in perfect holiness. It promises there is no guilt, no cause for guilt, and being causeless, it does not exist. Guilt does not exist. It follows surely from the basic thought so often mentioned in the text that ideas leave not their source. If this be true, how can you be apart from God? How could you walk the world alone and separate from your source? You know, and so, there is no cause for this guilt that we're carrying. I mean, the problem that I'm having with you or the other is, the person that or situation that seems to be the problem in my life is it's an outside picture of my guilt over believing I'm separate from God, but I see it as I'm separate from you.
Mhm.
And I'm constantly trying to defend myself by seeing the guilt in you because you're God. I turn it around and I project it back at God. And to try to prove that I do exist, that the sin, the crime of separation is real, but it's not my fault, it's your fault. And so we're playing this like sibling rivalry all the time as children of God, trying to say, you're the guilty one. And I'm not the one who abandoned our father. I'm not the one who destroyed love. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not the reason we can't go home,
Right. It's always somebody else. We're always
Right.
finger pointing
Right.
in some fashion or another, even if it's not conscious a lot of the time.
Right. And I mean, that's the course is a psychology. And so that's that's its psychology is this is where that guilt is coming from. The underlying metaphysics of the course is telling us that we've repressed this guilt, but really the only guilt in all human seeming dreams, minds, and minds in quote, because the course has a whole different take on that, but all guilt is a reflection or a projection of that original seeming guilt, which is over a false belief that we were able to differentiate ourselves and be other than God. And of course, ultimately that's not true. But as long as we're dreaming that it's true, then this is the way out. This is the way home. And it's a gradual path because we can't confront this directly because the fear and the guilt is really like crushing. It's just that we've forgotten the origin of it, but we know the crushing pain of it. We're experiencing that all the time in our relationships, in our struggle for who's the guilty one. you know so
Yep. Yeah, as long as there's a scapegoat, you know, we think we're safe as egos,
And
but
we're denying responsibility,
right.
nobody's responsible. I mean, look at our whole world,
Yeah.
where everybody else is responsible. You're the guilty one. You're the guilty one. Here's look at the governments we have, the courts we have, the judgments that we have, the way things are perceived completely diametrically opposed by political parties in this country, the two ways of seeing by people in the same families that have, completely different experiences of what their own childhoods were like with the same parents.
Hmm, hmm.
So, yeah.
And that has been going on since the beginning of
That's
time.
right. Yes, it has. In
I mean,
different, I mean,
if you,
in slightly different forms, but
yeah,
yes, it
yeah,
has.
yeah,
It has. And war has been going on. And one if one conflict gets resolved, another's already going on somewhere else, that's going to eventually combust in our world, in our seeming dream. So, yeah.
yeah. That line that I know Kim Wapnick emphasizes so often, which is such a vital, crucial idea, and that is ideas leave not their source. Here it's talking about, I think the above the line on his chart, the first first level is that we haven't left perfect oneness.
Right.
We haven't left God or Creator or what perfection, whatever name we want to throw
Right.
at it, but because we believe that we did, we that's where we need the remedy and the correction,
Right. And we
which
have
is
to
the Holy
learn that
Spirit.
we're a decision-making mind. We also
Yep.
did not
Yep.
leave this was just a decision that the mind was making. And we have not left the mind to flee into bodies, we haven't traded a brain for a mind. We pretend we have, and we are, we've forgotten the mind,
Mhm.
but it's really all happening in the mind. So
Yep.
that's where the choice is. That's what the whole course is really just about getting us back to that, so that we can finally, when we stop looking, diving back into the dream and running with all the interference to the memory of what we are, when all the guilt is finally worn away through this process, then there's the choice is clear. I mean, we don't want to torture ourselves ultimately, but we have to begin to make that association all the time, that this is a choice I'm making, and I can make another one.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I
So,
think that's pointed out so clearly in Ken's work, where he
yeah,
says the purpose of the course isn't to make us miserable; it's to point out how miserable we've made ourselves
right,
by and how masochistic we are by whenever we choose the ego, which is really most of the time until we
right,
start looking at it and slowly but surely choosing the other one more consistently.
right. And it's not to expect that we're going to be happy all the time, because we didn't come here to be happy. We came here to suffer.
Mhm.
Came here to prove something
Yeah.
that isn't true, and the cost of that is suffering. So,
Hmm.
so there isn't really happiness in the place that we think it is. We can find it. It's not here.
Right.
But it still exists. It's just we don't want to look for it where it is. So,
And it's
yeah,
really happiness beyond anything we can imagine, but it's only
yeah.
because we're so far down the rabbit hole of our
Right.
our
And we're,
denial.
we're out
Yeah.
of touch with it completely. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you
Yeah.
want to read paragraph 5?
Why don't you read that? Because I think I read
Oh,
the first
oh, you
one.
did. You
Yeah.
did. Yes. Okay. Sure. I'll
Yeah.
read it. Yeah. The
Okay.
light in you is what the universe longs to behold. All living things are still before you, for they recognize who walks with you. The light you carry is their own, and thus they see in you their holiness, saluting you as Savior and as God. Accept their reverence, for it is due to holiness itself, which walks with you, transforming in its gentle light all things unto its likeness and its purity. And thinking about that, it's like, the course emphasizes relationships, but obviously the stereotype is romantic or primary relationships, but also really it's our, as we begin to generalize, it's our relationship with everyone and everything
Hmm.
24/7. And
Yep.
just noticing the gazillions of thoughts every day that flit through our mind, and then the ones that we grab onto and water and fertilize become the weeds of the ego's garden, unless we're paying attention. And otherwise the seeds just fly out the other door or the other window, whatever. But yeah, but every relationship then becomes where um, the recognition is, and when we see that light in someone else, there's that, even if it's not consciously acknowledged, um, there's a recognition in our mind that that the recognition is there, if that makes any sense.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, the whole idea of remembering that we have that we're the same, that we have the same need to find our way home is
Right.
very
Right.
relevant to this idea of walking
Hmm.
home together. The obstacles to peace ends with lifting the veil, where we go home together or not at all. Where it's where this journey is. Everyone's taking this journey, and so if we're excluding anyone from the journey, then we're walking with the ego. We're
Hmm.
not walking with the memory. We're not following the light. We're trying to root ourselves more deeply in the darkness. And so the process is just seeing, oh, I don't want to include this person or this thing or this situation. And it's not based on form or behavior, but that I really just don't want them to be um, forgiven. I don't want to forgive them. I don't want to see our sameness. I don't want to see that we're, equally loved in truth
Yeah.
and equally innocent. uh,
Yeah.
you know, so yeah.
Yeah. As you said that, I was reminded of something Ken said that was almost identical to that in an audio I was listening to. And he said, the idea of just starting with sameness is probably not nearly as productive as just noticing how much we want to keep the differences.
How much exactly? It's always
Yeah. Yeah.
about the opposite. It's always
Yeah.
about,
Yeah. The not know. Yeah.
this isn't a course in love. This is a
Hmm.
course in looking at all of our barriers to the awareness of love's presence, and looking at how much I don't want
Right.
to
Right.
be, I don't want to join with you. I want to make issues between us. I want to keep those issues. I want to hold on to them. I want to make them important, and it's not, I mean, the course isn't saying, that we don't have to deal with differences in the dream. We do.
Mhm.
It's not speaking about it on the level of behavior or form again, but it's about the content of it and the hatefulness behind it, the self-hatred behind it, which is that we're projecting on each other. And that we act that out in wildly different ways, but all coming from the same place, the same mistaken place.
Yeah.
So everybody's terrified here, you know. So
Yeah.
we can relate to everybody that way. I mean, we're all suffering, we're all fighting the same hard battle, right?
Yep.
So,
Yep.
yeah.
That fifth sentence, accept their reverence. I was just thinking about how, applying that with Ken's suggestion of, turning it around is like, well, okay, how to apply the not know? Well, so if we look at everyone and everything, um, and see that how much we want to reject the respect and the reverence that is due everyone and everything, and seeing everyone as our long lost best friend, our savior, our appointed friend, symbolized in each moment. um, that's basically saying I don't want to accept your gifts because I don't want to accept my gifts that would make us the same. And that's, I think
Right,
that's a huge part of the process, isn't it? Just see how much, we're foot dragging, and being really gentle and patient with ourselves when we
right.
notice the depth of that
And I mean, if we
practice.
were able to see everyone and everything as, and the light of heaven and the fields of green and that everything is all well and good regardless, then we don't need this course. We don't need to be
Right.
here at all.
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah.
not the way we see it. And so it's really a course in, yeah, gently beginning to look at and accept what we're doing to ourselves,
Mm.
and recognizing that it's my choice to be happy is my choice entirely, that nobody else has that power. People have power over other bodies in this stream. They don't have power over our emotional state or our the love, the truth in us at all. And the body, is an illusion ultimately. And so, but we're not there yet. And so it's just the kind of just working with this. And it's such a comforting idea that we have this, um, you know, beautiful presence within our mind, this light, this, however you want to look at it, this, the figure of a completely ego-free Jesus, or Holy Spirit, or whatever, that we have that memory of wholeness within us, that can't go away. I mean, will never go away. It's never going to abandon us. We may abandon it and become afraid, but it will always come back, and it's always there. So, our understanding of whether we're in touch with it is also not a powerful contribution to the truth, um,
Yep.
which is paraphrasing, something that the Course says, that we think our understanding has any, bearing on reality is the height of arrogance. We're just very confused. But all right, you want me to move on to?
I just had one comment on what you shared, which
Sure.
is excellent, of course, as always. What you shared reminded me of a little plaque that my wife got among several others when we lived in Colorado, and it's migrated after a couple moves, and it says happiness is a choice. And I was thinking, well, that's true, but, again, the more practical, down in the trenches where we need it, version of that would be victimhood is a choice,
Right,
or
right,
martyrdom is a choice, or
right,
self-pity is a choice. All those things. I mean, those are them's fighting words to every ego. And yet, if we can look at that and just see, wow, yeah, the secret of salvation is I am, choosing this for myself.
right,
Yeah,
right. Yeah, I mean, hatred is a choice.
yeah, yeah.
It's not it's not required. You know,
It's a misinterpretation that's optional.
right,
Yeah, yeah,
right.
yeah.
Anytime that we're reacting to anything that external, good or bad, as judging it as good or bad, really is a
Hmm.
projection.
Yep,
There's
yep.
nothing, it's completely neutral. There's nothing really going on,
Hmm.
except everybody acting out this same, you know, confused thought system.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah.
I try to remember that when I'm looking at all the various screens. We've got a couple of monitors here in front of me, and then there's phones and tablets and TVs and so many other digital
Yeah,
interfaces these days. It's like all those pixels, those little red, green, blue um, pixels that make up the different colors we see and the brightness and darkness. They're all completely neutral in terms
right.
of as far as the software is, that the software doesn't say, well, this is a good pixel and that's a bad pixel. It basically just does what it's told. It displays the images, and it's us that assigns meaning. Like workbook lesson 2, I've given everything all the meaning that it has for me. So
Right.
I take these completely neutral pixels, which really generalizes the whole world, and everything my senses seem to present to me is really completely neutral. And
Hmm.
I've given it just a wildly, unimaginably ridiculous and exaggerated meanings that have no bearing on anything eternal, certainly. And
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I'm just as much, addicted to my screens as anybody else.
sure,
And,
sure, sure. Yeah.
and especially now that we all have the, capacity on our phones to just be, to tune into any, I mean, Instagram is, it's a complete wormhole, like I can be there.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can be there just, I don't know, I mean, I just, I mean, I don't have the time to get too caught up,
Yeah.
but if I did, I'd probably be on it like 24/7, it's fascinating. It's
Yeah.
just, you just get lost in these visual, worlds and universes, and yeah.
I'm amused by the postal address of Apple Computers headquarters, which may have changed since they moved to the big, sci-fi circular campus. But at one point, their address was one infinite loop.
I love it.
And I thought, because it's a programming term, meaning, well, that's how all software runs, is it just runs the same thing over and over again. And if there's things that interrupt it, then there's ways that can be handled. But that's how egos run. I mean, it's the
It is.
malware
And I
of
mean, right
every
now we're
ego.
talking on Zoom,
Yeah, yeah.
and I work remotely, and so the work that I do, I'm
Hmm.
talking with my colleagues and stuff constantly on
Yeah.
Zoom,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
it's just as real as anything else,
Yeah.
or unreal as anything else, right?
Right. Exactly.
It's yeah. So all right. I
It's
will
all
read.
all about the purpose, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, it's all the same purpose. I mean,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
purpose that, the only right-minded purpose is to make our lives to change the purpose of our dream. Not the, not to try to shuffle everything around or try to find new roles or resign from the world, but just, to use all of the roles that we're playing and all of the relationships and interactions that we're having as practice
Mhm.
for, seeing how I want to have everything my way. And is that serving me? That it's not really about what I think it's about. And choosing again to see peace instead of this,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
To question my choice, the choice, make the connection that I must be making a choice to, you know, um, to bail myself out from feeling guilty over the only thing that we ever feel guilty about, which is believing that we're separate, and recognizing that I want to feel better. I would like to see peace.
Yeah.
So anyway, so paragraph 6, this is the way salvation works. As you step back, as you're willing to question that and step back from your point of view,
Mhm.
the light in you steps forward and encompasses the world. So that memory of wholeness, is we step back from our blocks to it and we see the light again. There it is. It heralds not the end of sin in punishment and death. In lightness and in laughter is sin gone, because its quaint absurdity is seen. It is a foolish thought, the belief that we sinned against God and separated, a silly dream, not frightening, ridiculous perhaps. But who would waste an instant in approach to God himself for such a senseless whim? So from the course's perspective, this was all over long ago. It was a passing whim. It was a tiny mad idea, we're told. Um, that we failed to smile at the absurdity of it. There's the quaint absurdity is it's quaint, it's old, it's over, you know. Um,
Or
but
like Ken says, tickle it with a feather, and
right,
see it as silly and
right.
forgivable, not evil, sinful, and
Right.
wicked. Yeah.
And it's, I mean, we certainly do not, it seems very serious, the things that can seem to happen to our bodies emotionally and physically, to other people's bodies, and the course is not ever suggesting that we mock that or
Right.
anything,
Right.
or not be sensitive and kind and gentle with everybody who's suffering and trying to fight the same hard battle. But it is saying, that there, again, can you step back and allow light, allow healing, allow the light of true forgiveness and healing to lead the way, instead of assuming that you understand what any of this means. And if we are willing to step back and do that, we will automatically be kind and gentle with ourselves and everybody else. And we won't have to worry about, what to do or what to say. It will just, it will flow through us because we're not blocking it. Kindness created us kind, and we can, we remove the barriers to that element of what we really are, when we're willing to admit our way isn't working, to step back, you know. And that's the, I think, humility that Ken was talking about that we really need with this course.
Yeah. I was also thinking that second sentence, as you step back, it really includes forgiving both what seems to be external and what seems to be internal, and grievances and issues and well, sins. Really the whole sin, guilt, fear complex. We have to
Right. But it,
bring our
right.
projections in and then forgive it internally as well as what seemed external.
Right. It's really not about the external. So it's
Right.
it's
Right.
kind of simultaneous that would happen. It's not about, we're not really forgiving. We're forgiving my choice to react to something that is, not the cause of why I'm upset.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Should I
And
read the
in
next
that
one?
process, it
Oh,
automatically, would include the other person, and no one's
right.
excluded. We're not, we're no longer in that defensive state of my way or your way, one or the other of the ego thought system. We see that we go home together or not at all. We see we have the same need to find our way home. So yeah.
Yes.
So do you want to keep going?
Oh,
Read
sure,
this
sure,
one?
sure, sure. Yeah, and then yeah, the same need to go home is so true. I mean, that's you know, like a phrase I think you use frequently is, the longing of every heart.
Yeah, the
That's
need of
really
it.
everything that we've always wanted. Really is just past the ego's comfort zone. To
Yeah,
paraphrase a little
absolutely.
sign that was on a wall of a friend's house that I saw years ago. You know,
So, well, and that paragraph ends with, "Who would waste an instant in approach to God himself for such a senseless whim?" And then, I mean, I think the next paragraph kind of picks up on that.
yeah, exactly.
Well,
Thanks for
who?
tying that together.
Bruce, you
Yeah,
want to take it
well,
away, Bruce?
well, let's see. Who? Oh, yeah, that's right. Well, maybe me. Yeah. In fact, he's probably been kind, and we were just talking about reincarnation in one of the previous online groups today, and I was thinking, well, it's probably many lifetimes, but I'll read it as years here. Yet you
Okay.
have wasted many, many years on just this foolish thought. The thought that you
Yeah,
know that that the you know, that the world is about sin and punishment and death, and then that's
and
the
we're
reality.
duking it out for who's the less guilty one, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, that the ego's thought system is true, and it's everyone for themselves. You know, ones
yeah.
with the least damage and the most toys wins in the dream.
Right.
all
Time
those
is
kind of
running out on learning what the meaning of life is and all
yeah,
of
all
that.
that good stuff. Yeah,
Yeah,
I still have a big bucket list. Yada yada. All the
yeah,
different variations, right? Yeah. Okay. The past is gone with all its fantasies. They keep you bound no longer. The approach to God is near. And in the little interval of doubt that still remains, you may perhaps lose sight of your companion with this capital C and mistake him for the senseless ancient dream that now is past. So that to me is like our inner companion, our inner kindness teacher, the appointed friend, all the different synonyms, of course, he uses for Holy Spirit or Jesus. Um, that part of our mind that's, like Ken says, any symbol of something that's ego free in our mind will work. That we want to push that out of the way when we stubbornly insist that I'd rather suffer. And we may not phrase it that way, but I think if we recognize every time we see a grievance floating by out of the quiver in our grab bag of guilt, whatever metaphor is handy, and
Uh-oh.
just say, do I really want to hang on to this? I'm kind of reminded of that line that says, the course doesn't ask you to have any impure or insane thoughts. It just asks that there would be none that you would keep. And I
Right,
think that the challenge is noticing, those thoughts can flit by really fast, but if I can let go of them as quick as they come in, then I'm doing the mental aikido with ego's insanity, and getting out of the way and letting it go where it wants to go while I go the other direction.
right, right.
I
Yeah.
took an Aikido class several decades ago, and I only went to, I don't know, 2 or 3 sessions, but I quickly learned that it wasn't my thing. But the principle behind it is get out of the way of something that wants to interfere, and help that other person get where they want to go, and as a gesture of I don't need to be harmed and you don't need to be harmed, but if you insist on and doing that, I'll help. I'll not interfere, basically. and
Hmm.
and so I think that non-interference is present in the course as well, with
Hmm.
where he says, if I interfered with your cause and effect, I'd be tampering with the most basic law there is. um,
Right. It has to be our choice. And
yeah.
yeah.
So if I'm losing sight of my companion, my inner companion, it's because I'm wanting to do battle. I'm doing the old cliche of, is this a private fight or can anyone join? And even if it wasn't mine, I'll get off my chair and start in, get into the brawl.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and we know that by, we lose sight of whoever the other is
Mhm.
as being on the journey with us. We
Right.
want to
Right.
scoot. We want
Yeah.
to say, no, I have a higher purpose, but you don't. You're just, trying to drag us into hell, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or to think that I'm the holy one and I'm the one who, is choosing, I mean, early on, very early on for me, I remember with the course of kind of, doing this mental complaining, at least of, well, I'm the one who's trying to get it together and heal here, and like, why is it always on me?
Back to
That
that again.
I'm, and which is just hilarious
Yeah,
because,
yeah, yeah.
but that's what we do.
Right.
And we do all the time, so we do it with our spirituality too, that
Mhm.
we're somehow superior to people who aren't course students or something. I mean, my God, that's really twisted. And
Spiritual
we should
specialness is still specialness, right?
spiritual specialness. And this path is not for everybody. And it
Yeah,
doesn't mean that we're higher up the ladder because
yeah,
we're on this path. It
yeah,
it may mean something quite different than that, in
yeah,
fact.
yeah.
But who cares what it means? That it's working for us, or we're going to, we recognize it as a path that we've been looking for, and that's all that's important.
Mhm.
But everybody's on the same path, on some kind of path, trying to find their way home. It doesn't matter how they get there, and the course says that. It's just one of thousands of parts of the universal curriculum. So, but
Yeah.
anyway, okay.
Well, and
So,
that I think that ties into the idea that, we all think, I was kind of flashing to that a little cartoon a few years ago, Despicable Me. And I was thinking, well, that's everyone's self-concept as an ego. We all think we're the home of evil, darkness, and sin,
right,
contrary to the title of lesson 93 of Light and Joy and Peace Abide in Me. Right?
right. You think
And,
you are the, yeah,
but we're projecting our little despicable self-identity onto the world, and as long as we think there's differences. And so the way we walk with uh, our inner kindness teacher, or Jesus or Holy Spirit, is recognizing that everyone who walks with me on this earth, whether it's a pen or a book or a set of
right.
car keys, or I'm just like glancing around my desk, anything, in our world, and in everyone and everything really walks with us. And if we see differences as important, um, that's our classroom, right?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yep, for sure.
that's what we need to reintegrate. Yeah.
All right. Who walks with me? This question should be asked 1,000 times a day till certainty has ended doubting and established peace. Today, let doubting cease. God speaks for you in answering your question with these words: I walk with God in perfect holiness. I light the world, I light my mind, and all the minds which God created, one with me. And really, who walks with me is really more like, who am I choosing to walk with? Which inner teacher, right? The ego. Am I walking, down the ladder further into separation, or am I, trying to um, find my way home and recognize that we're all walking in that direction. We're all walking together, whether I am aware of it or not. Those are really our choices in every moment, right?
Yep.
So, which way do I want to go? Yeah.
1,000 times a day kind of reminds me of another phrase and workbook lesson we both enjoy a lot, and that's lesson 182.
Hmm.
There's a line in there that I've found helpful every time I've moved geographically. And 1,000 homes he makes, and yet none contents his restless mind. And, so as the past year has been, you know, putting in improvements and yada, yada, and doing all the things that they're normal and appropriate, and still asking the question, okay, when will this be enough? And yet it's never enough from the ego's
Yeah.
perspective. Yeah. I mean, no matter how beautifully we feather our physical or mental nests within the ego thought system, there's always that foundation of sin, guilt, and fear that's rotten to the core, and those are the termites that are going to erode any piece that we mistakenly believe is in that thought system. Yeah,
Yeah, totally.
yeah.
But
So again, the who walks with me um, question then becomes, it seems like the practical hit the ground running is, I just need to remember every person that I meet or think about, or specific situation that I'm in. I have that presence, that wonderful company, um, and I need to remember that and acknowledge that until I bring it inside and see it as myself, which I think sort of end of the ladder stuff from the course's
hmm
perspective, right?
hmm
Yeah.
right. And I think, just reestablishing your purpose when you become challenged, that
Uh-huh.
we're on this journey home. Which way do I want to go?
Mhm.
And which teacher again do I want to choose? It's always a choice of whether I want to root myself the direction I want to go, rooting myself more deeply in the dream, or following the light, stepping back from my way, of whatever's coming up for me, which seems intolerable. And being willing to say, well, I lost my way again. And, but I want to find it. And then the light's there because you've taken the interference away by recognizing that. So yeah.
All was there.
Yep.
Just waiting like the Maytag repairman in those old commercials for the
Yeah.
phone to
Yeah.
ring.
Yes. So
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I love those beautiful flowers and is that from a photograph that you took or is that
Yeah,
real?
that's actually a cactus in our front yard that
Wow,
was blooming a few days ago, and a little honeybee there, and olive tree behind it, and yeah. So, yep,
beautiful.
desert flora. So
Yes, yeah.
anyway, yeah.
Well, all right. Well,
Well,
enjoy the rest of your weekend.
likewise. Thanks, Susan,
Yeah,
and always a
you.
pleasure to talk with you,
You too.
and great reminders that we have that companion within us all the time, isn't it?
We're not alone,
Yeah,
and
we're
yep,
developing the trust that will remind us that we have always what we need all the time if we're willing to.
if we'll step back,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
And you
all
can
right.
always find Susan's work on forreasonforgiveness.com. And I'll also post this video in addition to YouTube on acimblog.com. And
Great.
looking forward to the next conversation.
Me too. Take care.
Thanks again. Likewise.
Bye bye.